What's up, chat? Happy Sunday. Beautiful day outside. Definitely took advantage of it this morning by playing some golf. Had missed yesterday, so making up to 2 today, but let's get into it. Jerry Sandusky grew up in Washington, Pennsylvania. His father headed the local community recreation center, running sports program for children. The Sanduskys lived upstairs. Their house was filled with baseball bats and basketballs and footballs. There were children everywhere. As an adult, Sandusky recreated the world of his childhood. Sandusky's son, EJ, once described his father as a frustrated playground director. Sandusky had organized kickball games in the backyard, and EJ said Dad would get every single kid involved. He had the largest kickball games in the United States. Kickball games with 40 kids. Sandusky and his wife, Duty, adopted 6 children and were foster parents to countless more. They took in so many foster children that even their closest friends could not keep track of them. Joe Posnanski wrote in a biography of Sandusky's boss, Joe Patrino, children constantly surrounded Sandusky so much so that they became part of his persona. Sandusky was a goofball and a cut-up. Much of Sandusky's autobiography, titled Incredibly Touched, is devoted to stories of his antics. The time he smeared charcoal over the handset of his chemistry teacher's phone, the time he ran a full of a lifeguard for horseplay with his children in a public pool. 4.5 pages alone are devoted to water balloon fights that he orchestrated while in college. Wherever I went, it seemed like I seemed like trouble was sure to follow. Sandusky wrote, I live a good part of my life in a make-believe world. He continues, I enjoy pretending as a kid, and I love doing the same as an adult with these kids. Pretending has always been part of me. In 2011, Sandusky founded a charity called The Second Mile. It was a recreational program for troubled boys. Over the years, thousands of children from impoverished and unsettled homes in the area passed through the program. Sandusky took his Second Mile kids to football games. He wrestled with them. He would give them gifts, write them letters, take them on trips, and bring them into his home. Many of the boys were being raised by single mothers. He tried to be the father they didn't have. If Sandusky did not have such a human side, there would be a temptation around Penn State to colonize him. A writer for Sports Illustrated said, upon Sandusky's retirement from the Penn State football coaching staff, here from the same era as part of an article from the Philadelphia Inquirer. In more than one motel hallway, whenever you encountered him and offered what sounded like even the vaguest sort of compliment, he would blush and engaging. A lopsided grin of modesty and would wrap his way around his face. He isn't in this business for recognition. His defense plays out in front of millions, but when he opens the door and invites in another stray, there is no audience. The ennobling measure of the man is that he has chosen the work that is done without public notice. The first questions about Sandusky conducted emerged in 1998. A Second Mile boy came home from a day with Sandusky, and his mother said that he had wet hair. The boy said he had worked out with Sandusky, and then the two had taken a shower in the locker room. The boy said that Sandusky had wrapped his arms around him and said, I'm going to squeeze your guts out. Then he lifted him up to get the soap out of his hair, with the boy's feet touching Sandusky's thigh. The mother told her son's psychologist, Alicia Chambers, about what happened, but she was unsure what to make of the incident. Am I overreacting? She asked Chambers. Her son, meanwhile, saw nothing amiss. He described him as the luckiest boy in the world because when he was with Sandusky, he got to sit on the sidelines at Penn State football games. The case was closed. The next reported incident happened 10 years later, involving a boy named Aaron Fisher, who had been in the Second Mile program since 4th grade. He came from a troubled home. He had gotten to know Sandusky well and spent multiple nights at Sandusky's home. His mother thought of Sandusky as some sort of angel. But in November 2008, when he was 15, Fisher mentioned to his mother that he felt uneasy about some of Sandusky's behavior. Sandusky would hold him tightly and crack his back. He would wrestle with him in a way that felt odd. Fisher was referred to a child psychologist named Mike Goldman, a believer in the idea that victims of sexual abuse sometimes bury their experiences so deep that they can be retrieved only with great care and patience. He was convinced that Sandusky had sexually abused Fisher, but that Fisher couldn't remember it. Fisher met with his therapist repeatedly, sometimes daily, for months, with Gulliam encouraging and coaxing Fisher, as one of the police investigators involving in the case would say later. It took months to get the first kid to talk after it was brought to our attention. First it was, yeah, he would rub my shoulders, then it just took repetition and repetition. Finally, we got to the point where he would tell us what happened. By March 2009, Fisher would nod in answer to the question of whether he had oral sex with Sandusky. By June, he would finally answer yes. Here we have two complaints against Sandusky in the span of a decade. Neither have led to Sandusky's apprehension. Why? Once again, because of default to truth. Did doubt and suspicion rise to the level where they could no longer be explained away in the 1998 case of the boy in the shower? Not at all. The boy's psychiatrist wrote a report on the case arguing that Sandusky's behavior met the definition of a likely pedophile pattern of building trust and gradual introduction of physical touch within a context of a loving, special relationship. Note the word likely. Then a caseworker assigned to the incident by the Department of Public Welfare in Harrisburg investigated, and he was even less certain. He thought the incident fell into a gray area concerning boundary issues. The boy was then given a second elevation by a counselor named John Seacock, who concluded there seems to be no incident which could be termed as sexual abuse, nor did there appear to be any sequential pattern of logic and behavior which is usually consistent with adults who have difficulty with sexual abuse of children. Seacock didn't see it at all. He said someone would talk to Sandusky about how to stay out of such gray area situations in the future. The caseworker and a local police detective met with Sandusky. Sandusky told them he had hugged the boy, but that there wasn't anything sexual about it. He admitted to showering with other boys in the past. He said, honest to God, nothing happened. And remember, the boy himself, who also said nothing happened. So what do? You default to truth. Aaron Fisher's story was just as ambiguous. What Fisher remembered during all of those conversations with his therapist and sessions with the grand jury kept changing. Once he said the oral sex stopped in November 2007. Another time he said it started in the summer of 2007. It continued until September 2008. Another time he said it started in 2008 and continued in 2009. He said that he had performed oral sex on Sandusky many times. A week later he said he had done it only once, and then 5 months later he denied ever having done it at all. Fisher testified about Sandusky before a grand jury twice in 2009, but it seems the grand jury didn't find him credible. They declined to indict Sandusky. The police began systematically interviewing other boys who had been in the Second Mile program, looking for victims. They came up empty. This went on for 2 years. The prosecutor leading the case was ready to throw in the towel. You have a grown man who likes to horse around with young boys. Some people had doubts about Sandusky, but remember, doubts are not the enemy of belief. They are its companion. Then, out of the blue, in November 2010, the prosecutor's office received an anonymous email. I'm contacting you regarding the Jerry Sandusky's investigation. The email read, if you have not yet done so, you need to contact and interview Penn State football assistant coach Mike McQuarrie. He may have witnessed something involving Jerry Sandusky and a child. No more troubled teenagers with uncertain memories with Michael McCurry. The prosecution finally had the means to make its case against Sandusky in the leadership of the university. A man sees a rape, tells his boss, and nothing happens for 11 years. If you read about the Sandusky case at the time, that is the version you probably heard, stripped of all ambiguity and doubt. You know, there's a saying that absolute power corrupts. Absolutely. The prosecutor, Laura Dicata, said in her closing argument at Spanier's trial, and I would suggest to you that Graham Spanier was corrupted by his own power and blinded by his own media attention and reputation, and he's a leader that failed to lead. At Penn State, the final conclusion was that blame for Sandusky's crimes went all the way to the top. Spanier made a choice. Dikita said, "We'll just keep it a secret." She imagined him saying to Curry and Schultz, "We won't report it. We won't tell any authorities." If only things were that simple. Imagine not saying nothing. Crazy work. But just another timeline and story about the case of Mr. Sandusky. Please don't be touching young men. Just don't be touching young men. That's crazy work. That's it. I'll see you guys later today. Peace.